Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got a lot to talk about today because a massive storm system is on the way for the United States, both this weekend and into next week. And honestly, this one could cause some serious problems. Now, if we're looking at the return of significant severe weather damaging winds, large hail, and yes, the potential for strong tornadoes. On top of that, a big time spring heat wave is also setting up. Most of us across the country are going to be dealing with above average temperatures, not just for a few days, but for the next several weeks. So in today's forecast, I'm going to break it all down for you. Now, we'll take a look at what's going on right now, where things are headed over the next 7 to 10 days, and what you really need to keep an eye on. Let's start with what's happening across the country right now. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen a ton of severe weather. What you're looking at here on the infrared satellite imagery are the leftovers from that activity. Very cold cloud tops still hanging over the central plains this morning. We've had some big storms, especially across the central and southern plains, and all of that was tied to yesterday's tornado outbreak. We actually had over a dozen tornadoes reported from Texas up through Iowa and Nebraska. It was supposed to be a more isolated event, but it ended up being pretty active, and believe it or not, we could see a few more tornadoes later today across parts of Texas and Oklahoma. I'll talk about that in just a second. That moisture is going to start shifting east into the Ohio Valley and eventually the East Coast. So areas like Kentucky could see some showers, thunderstorms, and maybe even a little bit of isolated severe weather as well. As a quick recap, yesterday's event was wild. There were 17 tornado reports. That doesn't always mean 17 tornadoes, but during our live stream yesterday, we visually confirmed or at least saw on radar about 8 or 9 different ones. We had tornadoes from Omaha, Nebraska, all the way back into parts of Texas. One of the biggest ones actually kicked off the live stream just outside of Matter, Texas. You can still watch that. Just head over to the live tab on my channel. So let's talk about today. Flying Fences Friday. There's a slight risk of severe weather for a small sliver of New Mexico, Texas, and southwestern Oklahoma. The marginal risk stretches from Oklahoma City all the way back into West Texas near Midland. The biggest concern today, large to very large hail, and I'm talking hail that could be massive. Again, yesterday we saw hail as big as 5.2 inches near Mater. That's bigger than a DVD. Not saying we'll see that again today, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some hailstones approaching softball size. So if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that and hit the bell so you don't miss it. Now, there's also a low end risk of a couple tornadoes today, especially over in the Texas Panhandle near Amarillo, close to a town called Leech. It's a conditional risk, meaning it'll depend a lot on how things develop this morning, especially a line of storms moving through Oklahoma. Definitely something I'll be watching closely, and again, we'll go live if needed. Moving into Saturday, things calm down a bit. There's still a marginal risk for severe weather over parts of New Mexico and Texas. And while hail and maybe an isolated tornado are still possible, it's not looking quite as intense Sunday. That's when things start to shift again. There's a broad area of severe weather risk stretching all the way from North Dakota and Minnesota through Texas. Now, this is another conditional setup. Whether or not storms develop will depend heavily on the cap, which is basically a layer of warm air that can block storm development. But if storms do manage to fire, especially over Nebraska and South Dakota, all modes of severe weather would be on the table, including tornadoes. Now, Monday, that's the day I'm most concerned about. Right now, there's already an enhanced risk outline stretching from Wisconsin and Minnesota through Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois. This whole region could be dealing with significant severe weather, damaging winds, big hail, and the potential for strong tornadoes. And that threat continues into Tuesday as the system shifts east. We're looking at a rare, large, slight risk area spanning from New England all the way down to Texas. That's unusual for this time of year. So Monday and Tuesday could both be very active, and there's a real possibility of a severe weather outbreak, especially Monday. What's driving all this is a pattern shift. Over the past several days, we've seen a lot of smaller scale severe weather setups, but starting Sunday, a large true moves in over the Rockies, and that's going to set the stage for a much larger scale severe weather event. Anytime we get a strong system like this coming over the Rockies in April or May, it tends to mean trouble, and this one's no exception. So on Monday, that low pressure system rolls across the Rockies, mixing warm and cold air, And by the time it hits the plains and Midwest, we're looking at a pretty dangerous environment. The low-level jet will be screaming, especially on Monday, providing plenty of shear for tornadoes. We might even be dealing with a tornado outbreak. But I'll stress, that's not a guaranteed outcome yet. I'd say there's about a 50-50 shot right now, with Monday definitely leaning toward a higher risk kind of day. Tuesday will be less organized in terms of tornado potential, but there's still going to be a widespread risk of severe storms, mainly hail and wind, and maybe a few tornadoes scattered in there. All right, let's take a look at how this plays out on future radar today. We'll continue to see showers and storms along the East Coast and in the Ohio Valley. And later this afternoon, things ramp up again in Texas and Oklahoma. On Saturday, we see more action over the northeastern parts of the central and southern plains. Sunday's our transition day. We clear out in the east, but winds start kicking up in the Great Plains, guess between 40 and 55 MFF. Storms may struggle to develop due to that cap I mentioned, but it's definitely something to watch. Monday is go time. Some models like the GFS don't show a ton of storm coverage, but others like the European model are lighting things up, especially over the Midwest. So while there's still disagreement between models, the ingredients are all there for a pretty big day. Scattered storms on Monday could actually increase the tornado threat, since we won't be dealing with a giant line of storms. Those individual cells are the ones that tend to rotate. By Tuesday, the severe threat shifts east, and the European model shows an even more elongated risk zone from the Great Lakes all the way to the southern plains. And then by Wednesday and Thursday, we may see yet another storm system refire, more severe weather in Texas and Oklahoma, and eventually the Ohio Valley. Now, looking beyond that, things get a bit more uncertain, but I do think by the middle of May, we'll see a ridge build, and that could lead to drier and warmer conditions across a large part of the country. Let's circle back real quick to today's timing. This morning, we've got some scattered storms in Oklahoma, which might tamper development a bit later, but over in far western Texas and the Panhandle, storms should start firing around 4 to 5 p.m. These could be big hail producers and potentially some tornadic supercells. So this chance for a tornado, probably south of Amarillo, around the looking west of Childress. These storms will hang around through the evening and could linger into the overnight hours. They're going to be slow movers too, so localized flooding is possible. Then by tomorrow morning, that line of storms will try to reach Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma City, but it'll mostly be a rain event by then. Saturday could see more isolated storms back over New Mexico and West Texas, with a low-end tornado and hail risk. And finally, the heat. Over the next couple weeks, temperatures are going to stay above average for a large part of the country, from the Pacific Northwest to the East Coast. The one exception may be up in Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, where we could see a pocket of below average temperatures mid to late next week. That's going to do it for today's forecast. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks so much for watching. Stay weather aware. See you in the next one.